Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome back to Houselights, the show on the Nerd Party that examines the work of directors, whether it's their entire career, segments of their career, different highlights from their career, and so on and so forth. And welcome back to a specific section of Houselights where we are delighted to look at the entire career of Brad Bird, which we are designating the Bird House. And I am John Mills, and I'm proud to be co-hosting this episode where we examine Brad Bird's film Tomorrowland with my dear friends, Darren Moser and Tristan Riddell. Darren, are you ready to join us on a vivid journey of imagination where we go back and find out that maybe Walt Disney wasn't too far off about that big, bright world of tomorrow?
For at least half the film, yeah. That is half of that movie. No, I showed you guys a picture. I have a Tomorrowland pin. This was right up my alley, when it came out in 2015. Gosh, what is that? Almost 10 years ago, 8 to 10. But this is going to be, I don't think I've watched it a lot since then. I owned it on Blu-ray, but it's going to be an interesting dive into the geopolitical landscape of the teens.
Well, goodness knows Disney isn't making it any easier to revisit Tomorrowland by not having it on Disney Plus, even though it's a Disney movie released with Disney IP by a Disney director about Disney things. Why would you have that on your service? Doesn't make sense. Tristan, how do you feel about that? Did it make it more difficult to encounter Tomorrowland for your first time?
I was so confused because when we were talking about, watching Tomorrowland last week amongst ourselves, we're like, yeah, okay, obviously this is on Disney Plus. I mean, why wouldn't it be? Because this is so hardcore Disney. And then we all looked it up and we all just kind of had this blank look on our faces. Like, okay. So we had to go out and find it.
Yeah.
It's insanity because like you said, John, it's based off of an early concept of Epcot. I think you can even see some Disney land or world attractions in the background at certain points. And they
even use a song from it's Carousel of Progress. Is that it, Darren? Keep me honest there. It's called Carousel of Progress.
It's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow.
Yeah. And
you're even in It's a Small World. You're in that ride.
Yes. You're in It's a Small, like,
I'm expecting to see like Howard Stark walking by when we're chilling at the World's Fair. I mean, that's what it feels like.
Right. It's baffling to me. And Darren, I think you were talking about this. I don't remember whether it was on mic or off mic, where after Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, Tomorrowland is really sort of the blank check movie for Brad Bird.
I mean, that was a guess. Like, I don't have any documentation of like, but I actually, in reading it, I think he was brought in onto an existing project. So this may not have been his blank check.
This was in the works for a long time. Like as far back as in, I don't know if this is the first utterance, but this was one big utterance was in 2008. This was originally going to be starring The Rock.
Oh, wow.
Wouldn't that have been such a different type of movie to watch?
Very different. So yeah, this was
7
not
years later it gets made. That's a long time to be in purgatory.
So this very much wasn't Brad Bird's baby or big idea, but I mean, I'm sure he definitely clung to it because it very much feels like Brad Bird. Like, this feels like a Brad Bird concept and movie. He turned down The Force Awakens for this.
Wow.
Now, see, I want to peel this apart, specifically because there are a lot of Star Wars references just in this film alone. And it's very obvious that Brad Bird is a Star Wars fan. Tristan, I'll throw it to you. This is your first time looking at it. Was there anything about this where you go back in your brain now and you look at it and you say, I understand what it would have attracted Brad Bird to this project instead of working on The Force Awakens? Is there anything that jumps out at you where you say, that's why Brad Bird would have taken this?
Well, I think I read this, so I don't think I can really give a conjecture answer because I feel like I know the answer. It was because it's original. It's an original piece with a huge budget. And even though he's a huge Star Wars fan, it was kind of the sense of, well, I'd rather work on an original idea and also just go see Star Wars. I think that was kind of the thing where like it's, like as Star Wars fans, we would of course jump at the chance of working on a Star Wars film, but at the same time we're being robbed of of seeing it for the first time.
I mean,
But yeah, I think that's what he said in an interview, that he was looking forward to seeing Force Awakens as a Star Wars fan, but he wanted to work on something that was original.
and I buy that. I mean, you say like we love Star Wars and we'd love to work on it, but honestly, I think there's got to be part of a component of the shoes you're filling becoming a director of a Star Wars movie. Like everybody says that, like, oh yeah, I'd love to make my own Star Wars movie, but like if Kathleen Kennedy shows up with a $150 million check, like, and now all of a sudden you have to make a Star Wars movie, like that is very imposing. And especially with The Force Awakens, it's like, and you're now starting the next saga of the franchise. Like that is a huge ask. So I could see turning down for many reasons.
And and that $150 million is not something that you can just do whatever you want with. You very much have to do what the producers want you to do.
True. But Darren, let me ask you this. As you revisit this movie for the first time in a while, and you look at the camera work, you look at the storytelling style, do you see Brad Bird showing you anything that would have lent itself to a Star Wars movie? Do you see anything? Do you look at this and you say, yeah, this would have been a good fit for Star Wars. This would have been a good person to bring in to bring the land. Because J.J. Abrams came in, obviously we saw how that went. We know his visual language. It looked and felt like a J.J. Abrams movie. Comparing the visual language of the two, does this feel like a director whose visual language would have even worked in Star Wars?
No, I think Brad Bird could totally have done a Star Wars movie. I think it's hard to compare to this movie because I think the core of this movie comes from a quote from Brad Bird where he says, I started to wonder about why people aren't as optimistic about the future as they were in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. I mean, that statement right there, that is this movie. That is why this movie, that is the entire plot. And part of it is MacGuffin and part of it is, other. But so it's hard for me to compare this movie to Star Wars in that regard because I feel that message, this is a message movie. Star Wars isn't a message movie. So at its core, like, okay, granted, like, yeah, there are some messages, but I'm just saying, like, not like this message. This is like hitting you over the head with it message. But that's how it feels like to me.
I would agree there's a hitting you over the head with it sort of thing. And Tristan, as somebody coming to it for the first time, do you feel that it hits you over the head, or do you think that Bird is a capable messenger for the story? Or did you feel at some point like, okay, I got it. I got the point, and let's move it along here?
Oh, it wasn't subtle at all. It very much hit you over the head. I don't think I was bothered by it because it's also within my own belief system. And so I would probably am biased towards that. Where if it was a message movie that was against my belief system, I probably would be a little bit more eye-rolly. You know what I'm saying? But it definitely was there. It definitely was not subtle. It definitely hit you over the head, but I wasn't too terribly bothered by it. I was actually a little perplexed because at the beginning, the second beginning, when they are in present day and what's her name is in class. What is her name?
It's okay. It's what's her name? Protagonist. I totally get that.
Right.
Casey Newton.
Casey Newton.
Yeah.
So when Casey's in class and she's going through the veritable doom scrolling of class, where they're saying about how everything's turning to crap and everybody's going to die and everything like that. They showed it as a negative. I was kind of like, wait, I wish I was learning about this in class. I wish they talked about this in school. We never talked about this in school.
See, that in and of itself is so strange to me because, I guess it varies by district sort of thing. Like I'm very, like, I was like, yeah, that's what classes were like for me. And I'm older than you guys. I would argue that some of that persistent pessimism is why Gen X turned out with the big old whatever as our rallying cry. SFW guys, that's where we were. But
and as a millennial who was a little bit more on the verge of, social outcry, and Gen Z just ran with it. It was surprising to me because I didn't learn about any of this crap. We didn't learn about global warming. We barely learned about any wars that were going on. It wasn't until 9/11 happened that we learned about what was going on in the Middle East, and it was just like, they were showing all of this as a negative, and I'm just like, this just sounds like a well-informed student.
well, I think that there is something. Yeah, let me toss it to you, Darren. I mean, does Tristan have a point, or I personally looked at the way that the teachers were portrayed as how the movie intended, which was they weren't delivering any ideas of, okay, kids, so let's
Right.
get out there and fix it. It was very much just like life sucks and we're all going to die.
It's inevitable. Yeah.
Right. So do you think that they overdid that part? Are you are you team Tristan on that one, or are you team Bird with good old Brad as he's directing the film?
No, I mean, I see Tristan's point of, and I think that is to each of our own education. Yeah, I remember not learning as much about those issues. I remember when An Inconvenient Truth came out by Al Gore. Like, that was the kind of the first real big public, hey, let's kind of talk about this, versus like the ozone, like repairing the ozone. That's as deep as our environmental education went before that. But yeah,
And what's his name with like the Bowling for Columbine?
oh yeah, Michael Moore.
Michael Moore. Yeah, that was a big
yeah.
splash.
Yeah, so just like the rise of the documentaries about these issues, and like being, and you kind of had like popular documentarians, like not since Ken Burns as we really had like a household name, but they were a documentarian. So for me, it comes down to, it's like this part of the message of this movie. And because honestly, when like, obviously we're doing Brad Bird, so we got to watch this movie. But there's a part of me that was kind of dreading going back to this well, because I remember like loving parts of it, loving the 1960s stuff, loving the futurism stuff, loving all of that. And then it felt like there's this big kind of black spot of, the whole nobody's doing anything. There's no hope. And they're just wallowing it. Like Frank's wallowing in it for the majority of the movie. He's, super depressed. And it was just, I wanted a story like that was entirely in that prequel piece. I wanted to see Frank and I wanted to spend time in Tomorrowland. It's the name of the movie, and we're, barely there.
That was really shocking to me as a first-time viewer. I was like, this is called Tomorrowland, right?
Do you know the name on the poster? Do you know it?
Like, we got a commercial for it, and then that's it.
I'm gonna come at that at what you are both talking about there from two angles. The first one, and let's shelve this part of it, is there's a name on this that strikes fear sometimes in the heart of people who enjoy their franchises and or long-running series or reboots. Damon Lindelof. It's a name that people have learned to be a little skittish about. It can be a hit and miss when his name is on a project in terms of reception from the crowd. But Darren, I'm going to turn it on its head here. I get what you're both saying about wanting to spend more time in Tomorrowland. I agree, except for the fact that I, especially revisiting it this time, I think that it contributes to a phrase that we love to throw around every so often: protagonist confusion. Who's the main character of this story is Frank until it isn't. And I think that the Clooney reveal is way more effective if you pick up with Casey and have nothing but mystery until Frank shows up, and then you can tell his story in flashback. That would be what I would propose. If I were sitting in the booth with somebody and I watched this, a rough cut for the first time, I would say, this is what you got to do. This is what's going to get everybody's going to get on board. Do you agree with that?
Because we've been with Frank's POV up until that point. But if we had started with Casey's POV until she meets Frank, and then we get his info dump in a slightly different manner or something, or maybe it's like a version of the, what do they call it? The hologram where but it was, he had co-opted it to show like more of his point of view or something like that.
And I was I was super confused by the framing, because when we get to Casey waking up and going down to breakfast, I assumed that George Clooney was going to be the one sitting there, not Tim McGraw.
Oh, and there's also the framing of the framing, the very, very beginning of the movie, which is this whole like, well, I'm going to tell this story,
which is stupid.
It was so
terrible,
stupid.
Terrible opening.
It was terrible.
Opening.
And then you have your characters speak over each other, and they're like, well, you're doing it wrong. And I'm like, what is going on? I have this locked off shot of George Clooney, and someone's talking at him off screen. Like, it was terrible.
And it's also ADR, and it's bad ADR because their lips do not match up with what's saying.
Well, I would
like
say
a little bit.
I would say also the sound quality is like you can always tell to a certain extent when it's a booth versus native audio, and that's a constant push and pull. But I think it really jumps out in that scene because the audio, even, speaking to that point, Tristan, it feels like, wait, am I watching a video of something? Am I watching people actually talking? Because the audio is telling me I'm watching a video, and then the visuals look like I'm watching a video. And then at the end, when we come back to it, it's him talking to a crowd. And I'm like, so it's not even internally consistent, basically, in terms of its presentation.
I mean, the crowd is made of robots, and so it's kind of the camera POV of the robots, but I'm not going to defend it. It was not a good idea.
There's no reason for it to be there.
And so I think you wind up with a situation where there's another movie that came out very recently where the first 20 to 25 minutes of it was in a specific flashback, if you will. And then it suddenly shifts over and the character is much older. And everybody I've spoken to, and because I had the same reaction, everybody I've spoken to was like, that was so jarring because I was in it and I was there and I was like, okay, this is the story. This is what I'm doing. Wait, everything just changed. And I just don't know the answer. And I wasn't motivated to really look it up, but it really feels like that opening and/or opening and ending, the framing device feels like something that was tacked on in a last-minute effort to try to make it more understandable to people as to what was going on.
It feels like it's in test screening, and they're like, oh, this isn't working. People aren't getting what we want them to get. So let's put George in front of a green screen. We'll take the background plate of the door, and we'll have him do this VO. I mean, you could shoot that entire thing in like a day. Super easy.
I actually took it the opposite way, where it was just like, this had to have been somebody's idea from the beginning before they even put pen to paper. And they're just like, this is how I'm going to start it. This is how I'm going to end it. And it's going to be great. And then when they actually do it and it's garbage, they don't let go of it. Of course, I have nothing to back that up, but
that could very well be the case. And it's like, it's one of those things where, was it just that Disney was so distracted from trying to get that Star Wars franchise restarted that somebody wasn't sitting in the room saying, you got to cut that opening. You got to just start with the girl.
Well,
just
and
start
the
with
opening
her.
itself, like, again, if we had just started with 1964 Frank, that's a great opening. It's like hopeful, and you got this kid, and yeah, it's going to be jarring when your protagonist totally shifts and it jumps several decades. But the fact that instead we get a ticking clock and the world is doomed, like from the get-go, from like the first 30 seconds. And I'm like, well, that's great.
You know what's really interesting to me is if I jump forward and I get rid of all of that stuff before we introduce Casey's story and really introduce her as the protagonist, when we get to her, the beginning of her story is so similar, in my view, to how we're introduced to Sam Flynn in Tron Legacy. she's riding a motorcycle. She's creating hip,
Environmentalist
sabotage. She's got
sabotage.
a
Oh,
message. What happened to everything? I'm like, it's almost as if somebody read the script for Tron Legacy and they were like, yeah, our character should do that too. And it really hit me at this point because I love Tron Legacy. I think Tron Legacy is a freaking masterpiece, and everybody come at me, bro. I don't care what you think. And it just seems so interesting to me that it's so similar to, like, was there just something in the water at Disney where they were like, yeah, we got to have them in leather with a helmet doing a cool thing. And she'll have drones. He's doing base jumping. They're on motorcycles. They're trying to like get people to care about stuff. And it's like, it's so weird how did that jump out at you, Tristan?
Well,
I know that
her brother even said, like, identify yourself.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're right. Yeah.
Which is straight from Tron.
Yeah.
I know it can be a somewhat common phrase, but like coming from a Disney film,
yeah,
specifically Brad Bird, that had to have come from Tron. So yeah, that landed pretty hard with me. Like I'm right there with you. I'm with you guys with the framing device is horrible, and it's a huge shift once we get to Casey. And I was watching this, and I even wasn't entirely sure with what she was doing at first because we were so in the dark. I was like, does she not like NASA? Like,
yeah, right.
Like, is she sabotaging NASA? Like, she has the NASA cap. I thought this was like
she doesn't want them to go to the moon.
She needed like a best friend who was like doing it with her or something, that they're like talking as they're doing things.
Exposition back and forth.
Yeah, so it's like her friend from school or something that is like going along for the ride. I don't know, something.
Or honestly, I don't even think you needed it, because the exposition could have come from Tim McGraw, where he says like, "Where were you last night? We talked about this. Like he holds up the paper or something like that, and it shows like, and she's coming in late, and
there
catches
was a
her.
lot of the fact that he basically explained the last 5 minutes of what we just saw. Like,
right.
Either don't have him explain it and trust your audience, or don't show it and just have the exposition to cover it.
And on top of that, I had to rewind it twice to figure out what the hell was going on, because of Athena's character getting the DNA and printing it on the pin.
Right.
I thought that was Casey.
So you're like, who is this and why is she doing this?
Because we have a brown-haired, young-looking white girl in the dark wearing a baseball cap,
and another brown-haired, white girl. Yeah.
Wearing a baseball cap. So like when she when she was at the cops getting her stuff, and she said, "That pin's not mine." I was like, "What are you talking about? You had it like 2 minutes ago."
Well, and they purposely don't. They're not showing Athena in bright light, because there's that reveal where you do finally see her in light, and it's supposed to be like, oh, she hasn't aged. Like, what is going on? Like, was that a surprise at all, Tristan? Because obviously she's this character we saw in the 60s who now looks identical.
Well, now that because I rewound it twice, and I was just like, oh, it's Athena. It's the girl from the beginning. She must be ageless or a robot.
Right.
And I think that's another problem with the framing device, because I think that the revelation that she's a robot is more interesting if it's a surprise, when she shows up.
Or even a surprise to the protagonist instead of just the audience.
It's sort of the Terminator 2 problem of they spoiled that Arnold was the good guy before the movie was released. But if you look at the movie,
they don't frame it like he's the good guy until he shoots the T2 in the hallway with the roses.
That's
and
the moment.
Speaking of Terminator, like when Athena was on the windshield, and then she punches through.
Yeah. Or even when she's just chasing, she's faster than T-1000. That's impressive.
It's just I want to say something.
Go for it.
So, we're talking about like being in the dark and having certain surprises for the audience. We were in the dark way too much for this film. As an audience member, there was so much going on, and one of the protagonists didn't know what was going on. Casey didn't know what was going on. We didn't know what was going on. And
Casey doesn't know what's going on for a long time.
And I started to not care.
Yep.
Like, as I was watching, I was like, you know what? I have stopped giving a crap because you're not letting me in. I'm not like, you're not making me hip to what's
Well-
going on. And we didn't even get the plot revealed to us until an hour and 45 minutes in.
Yep.
Well,
That's
and
insane.
It's worse
Agreed.
than that, though. It's not only the plot. It's okay. So she's the protagonist, which means her choices should be driving the plot, but she is a passenger
Mhm.
until she gets to the monitor in like the third act when she's actually like driving the disco ball.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that moment is when
The shuttle mouse or whatever, the ball mouse, whatever.
until then, she's kind of, everything's happening to her. She has no agency until that moment, and we're sliding into third at that moment. Like way too much of the movie had passed.
Now we're sort of, I think, justifiably pointing out a lot of flaws with the
ripping
film.
into the movie. Yeah,
we're
yeah.
a lot of flaws with the movie, and I'll say really quick before we go to the next point that I took my daughters. I only had 2 daughters at the time to go see this film.
Oh, okay.
And they enjoyed it. I had a less enthusiastic reaction, but being a good dad, I was kind of like, I'm glad you loved it, honey. Which they've learned over time is code for good for you. That's great. But I actually offered my oldest daughter the opportunity to rewatch it with me. And I got to tell you, the wisdom of children sometimes. She looked at me and she said, I don't want to. And I said, why? She goes, because for the longest time, this was my favorite movie and I don't want to watch it again and find out that it isn't. She says, I would rather hold on to my memories of it. And I was like, that sounds like my child. That really sounds like a kid who paid attention.
You've said that to us before about not wanting to watch certain movies.
It's like when I watched Hook.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice. But I do want to look at some of the more positive aspects of the film. Okay. I want us to find them. I want us to come together with them. I think
I want us to really, really
let's work hard, guys. Let's just
I love
dig
the music.
for it.
I love the music in this movie.
It's hard not to.
I bought the soundtrack to this. It's energetic. It gets you going. All of the just the like it's just kind of has actually, now that I'm thinking about it, of course it's Giacchino, but that makes me think of Enterprising Young Man, the main
yes,
sound.
That's my favorite piece from all the Kelvin
2009. But yeah, it's very similar in the staccato-ness of the main themes and stuff. So I love the music for this. It every track is, and the end credits, the crescendo, like the ending, the music's kind of carrying the ending as like the big crescendo. Like whether or not the message is landing is besides the point, but the music is on par for that scene.
I will say that even though some of the camera work, and this is what's interesting to me, is I think that Claudio Miranda does a really good job on the whole with this. I think that it's not perfect, but I think that there are definitely things that are really nice to look at that happen here. And there are some really good, moments as well with blending, effects with live action and everything like that. As I watch this, what I see, in all honesty, is a director who would have probably had more success with this film if Disney would have sucked it up, and instead of treating animation, which used to be their bread and butter, with the disdain that they seem to now, I think that Brad Bird would have made this a terrific animated film. Ooh. There were so many things about this where I looked at it and I said, this is the guy who made Iron Giant.
Yeah.
And
especially with like the Eiffel Tower going up.
And if I were watching this and it were animated, I think everybody would have friggin' loved this film. But live action, there are certain things. I'll point to when Frank goes over and he's falling and the rocket pack, and he has to grab the rocket pack and he has to turn it on. Live action, I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah, I
animated
lose suspension of disbelief for that.
Right.
He's falling a long time.
But animated, I would have been on board.
Well,
I would have
we've
thought that
seen
was a
that
charming
a
sequence.
million times with Bugs Bunny, like somebody jumping out with that. Like that is a cartoon moment.
Mm-hmm. And so I think that this is an animated movie that is unfortunately a victim of being forced to be live action.
Now, I know this is kind of a side note, but I want to mention this before we move on, because Claudio Miranda, like I want to talk about his history real quick, because he shot some amazing stuff here. Because okay, so he's the guy responsible for he photographed The Curious Case of Benjamin Button,
Yep.
Tron Legacy,
Uh-huh.
Ooh.
Life of Pi,
Yep.
Oblivion,
Which
Oh,
is a
man.
massively underrated film, in my opinion. But hey.
and I mean, like he's done a lot of shorts and everything like that, but also, and lately he did Top Gun Maverick and Spiderhead. So one of my favorite things about Tomorrowland is definitely how it was shot. Like you can really tell that this was shot by somebody who knows what they're doing, and you could tell that Brad Bird really relied on him, because you can feel that touch,
Mm-hmm.
specifically from, I think, from Oblivion and Tron Legacy. I don't see Benjamin Button that much, but obviously it's completely different genres. But you can feel that clean style, even though in Tomorrowland it's, how do I put it? Like with Oblivion, even though it's post-apocalyptic, it's extremely clean.
Yes.
And Tron Legacy, by its very nature, is very clean. And Tomorrowland is surprisingly clean too, even though we deal with being in a swamp, or like being in an old, like the Blast from the Past shop and Paris.
Yeah,
Nothing's
well,
like too dark
there's-
to see.
But
Right.
I think that there's a crispness to the picture. Your eye can always see what's happening, because that's something I know that Tristan, you've harped on a lot, is sometimes movies are shot dark and or they're shot in a certain way to get a mood, and you're like, what's happening? This is muddy. I can't see what's going on right
Turn
now.
on the friggin' lights, slow down the
I
camera.
mean,
Whereas-
even
whereas-
the opening,
Yeah.
like where she's sabotaging the at the shuttle site, like there's not a lot of light there. It's like industrial lights. Like any modern movie, it would just be black and you wouldn't see anything. It'd be muddy.
Yep.
But I feel that it almost kind of feels like once HD went from 1080 to like 4K, and everything just got so much clearer. Like we thought it was HD, but now it's like actual HD. But I what I love about the visuals is it's a really, like, it actually held up really well for CGI and effects from 2015. I think Brad knew where to lean on CGI and where to do things practically. Like all the Tomorrowland stuff from the beginning, all of the, that all of the 1965 stuff has to have tons of like set extensions and extra stuff to make it look like the World's Fair, but it blends perfectly. Like I don't ever feel like, oh, well, there's the wall or there's the part that's not real. So I think that is, as we often try to talk about, what do we see of the director? And I think I look at someone who did Mission Impossible. I look at someone who knows how to blend these animated and real worlds. Like the visual effects overall really hold up still for a movie from that era.
Now, see, that's something I want to hit on there, because you mentioned his history and everything. Tristan, we just watched Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Now we watch Tomorrowland. I see Tomorrowland, I see a lot in common with Iron Giant. Do you see the director of Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol in here anywhere?
Not really. I'm with you. I see more Iron Giant than I do Mission Impossible with this one. I think, we talked a lot about how Ghost Protocol kind of solidified the new direction that was modern day Mission Impossible, where JJ kind of started leaning into it, but Brad Bird with Ghost Protocol nailed it down. And I don't see that here. And I think because of what you said, I see way more even Incredibles and Iron Giant in this than I do Mission Impossible. Like Mission Impossible feels like how do I put this? Like when we reviewed it, we're like, oh, this is hard to talk about where we see Brad Bird because this is his first live action film. So how can we really say, this is him here, this is him there? But we can say that with Tomorrowland. We're like, oh no, this, we can see this here, we can see this here, we can see that there, and this there, and that there. With Mission Impossible, it's like, no, that's a cruise film with
Right.
those same producers. It's like Cruise as a producer, these other producers who have worked on, I don't think Wagner did Ghost Protocol, but you're just like, no, this is like, he's coming in, he's the worker, he's the fantastic project manager, and I'm not saying that derogatorily. And like, he's able to get it done. He's able to motivate the people. He's able to get it creatively done and work it, but you don't really see him that much. But with Tomorrowland, we're seeing more of his previous stuff.
And I think that's what makes this a really interesting film to watch, in all honesty, is you do have that in terms of the project manager role, just to hit on that, is I will never forget I love the Halloween series through good and bad. And Halloween 2 is a movie that's not particularly good, and by a lot of accounts was sort of taken away at the last minute from the director, Rick Rosenthal, I think his name was. But I remember seeing a making of documentary many years later where somebody said, well, is this your movie? And they were obviously meaning it to be contentious. And he had a very philosophical view where he said, hey, listen, he goes, I make a movie, but the producers want a certain movie and the writers want a certain movie and I might want a certain movie. He goes, but the producers are the ones that they're making the movie and they're going to release the movie that they want. Like, I'm paraphrasing the hell out of it right here, but it was an incredibly philosophical sort of thing for a director to say.
That's why
Yeah.
the director does not get an Oscar when it wins Best Picture.
Right.
Is because it's the producers making the movie. Like if the director's not producing it, then he's
Right.
not going to get home. He or she is not going to take home the statue.
And I think and this is going to be a very big overstatement. And Darren, I want to know if you agree with this or not. I think one of the things that's frustrating about Tomorrowland.
I was just going to say he did produce. Brad Bird did produce Tomorrowland as well.
But that's sort of where I'm going, right? With Tomorrowland, I do feel that ownership that he has here, and part of what makes this frustrating is this way more than Ghost Protocol feels like he has ownership of what's going on here, but he doesn't have he turned down Star Wars. He doesn't have the George Lucas seat, where I remember in an interview with Rick McCallum, actually, I remember he said this at Star Wars Celebration 1, where somebody was asking what it's like to be the producer. He describes the role of a producer, and he says, of course, George is the executive producer, so he could always overrule me. And this feels like a movie that needed the director to be sitting in that executive producer chair. Darren, do you think this movie turns out differently if Bird is sitting in that big chair saying, no, this is the movie that's coming out? Do you think that this is a victim of too many people sitting around that table?
I think the answer is yes to both. I think it definitely feels like there are a lot of different people pulling at the direction of this movie. Like I can see, there's 3 people on the production credits. Like I could see them all like, oh, and you have this, not formula, but you have someone who really likes the 1960s bits and someone who really likes the message bits and someone who really likes the female protagonist and she's, leading us by the hand and it's all going to come together. And it feels like that. It feels like, I wouldn't go as far as to say by committee. I think that's a little harsh for this movie. It's definitely got vibes of that, but then to answer the other question, which I think is true as well, of is this Brad Bird's movie? And again, this is just speculation, but I feel like from that quote, like I read, I feel like the core story of why don't we believe in the future like we did in the 60s, like that is this story. So I think even if he did have a bigger seat at the table, I think he would have. I don't think the movie would have changed that much, because I feel like that is the strongest element that won out over the other voices. Whether that is the best thing for the movie, I don't know. That's maybe on personal preference, but I mean, it's sounding like we're enjoying the other parts of the movie a little more than just that message. But I feel like, yeah, if he was an executive producer, I think we would have still gotten this movie maybe with a little more message in it than we got, which we still got a lot.
So another aspect of this film is that there is an unexpected brutality in how people are dispatched, the people that get killed.
Good.
Oh yeah,
Lord.
yeah. The
Lord,
animatronics
I'm
like
so
just
glad
straight
you
up
brought
kill
that up.
people, like straight up.
Yeah, disintegrate.
Yeah.
They're
They're
gone. They're gone. They're not going home to their families.
They're not
Their
knocked
kids
out. They're
their
dead.
kids are grown up childless. And even on top of that, you use such a great word, John. The brutality of how they took out the androids. Holy crap. Like, I had to double check what this was rated, because Casey takes a baseball bat to a humanoid robot. She takes a baseball bat to their head and smashes it in, and it just gets smushed and smushed and smushed. And we see it get smushed like 5 times before we see circuits come out. And even though we see circuits come out, this is a humanoid body getting bashed in the skull. And we see that routinely throughout the movie. This is an incredibly violent film for being Disney and PG, and for trying to be optimistic.
So let me ask you this question. Does that speak again? Would that violence play differently as an animated film? Would it have
totally
seemed as brutal if it were an animated film?
No, and I think that they could have exaggerated I think in an animated film, again, this is complete conjecture, but in an animated film, if Casey took a bat to one of their heads, I think you would immediately see circuits.
Yeah.
Like, it
or
would
you
just be
uppercut
boom.
and the head goes up 10 feet and wires and servos are out the bottom. Like,
It-
you
well,
over exaggerate on
It
it.
telescopes up and comes back down.
Yeah.
It's semi-comedic where it's like,
Yeah.
"Vroop," and you're like,
It's like,
okay, this isn't
more
real.
Inspector Gadget vibe than
Yes.
than anything. Yeah.
Yes.
But it was
yeah.
it was just, I was taken aback, like, watching this. And I'm not, like, I know that we joke that I'm delicate, but I wasn't looking for an excuse to not like the violence in this movie, or it was just surprising. It was just absolutely surprising. And I could see people taking their kids to this film, like seeing the ad campaign and the marketing, like, oh, it's rated PG because I'm sure it's just because it's live action. And then seeing seeing people, like humans, straight up die and get disintegrated, and seeing human form being, like, beaten to death with baseball bats. I could see people walking out.
I can say that we all know that I'm nowhere near as delicate as you.
And you take pride in your kids' desensitivity.
Yes, I scar my children at every possible turn. We all know this. This is well documented. But I almost wonder if it's just the absence of blood that got them to skate by on that. Because
absolutely. Absolutely.
And you also have the
disintegration
animatronics act like pseudo-human, like they're overtly smiley. They're all like gorgeous models. Like, everybody looks like they're advertising an Armani suit, which is on purpose. So I think that tweaks the knob a tiny bit as well, of like, this is not a human. This is a, like, superhuman. It's not supposed to be real.
Allow me to ask this question, though, because this is a movie that definitely leans into a stereotype of nerd culture when we meet Keegan-Michael Key and Catherine Hahn.
Who were wasted.
Did that land with you guys, or was that too over the top?
I was surprised at how they were wasted, but then I had to look up 2015. I was like, oh, Catherine Hahn was nowhere near as big as she is today. But Keegan, like, he was on Key and Peele at this time.
Yeah.
So,
See, I didn't know Key and Peele at the time I watched this movie, so I didn't recognize who that was until I watched it this time. I'm like, oh, that's him. But yeah, so in that regard, first time watching, they were just people. I didn't realize who they were supposed to be at all.
But in terms of their portrayal of, quote unquote nerd culture, the nerd shop, that this is a store that the three of us would have, if we were visiting nondescript town.
They walked onto the set of The
US.
Big Bang Theory, basically, is where
Yeah.
they shot
And
this.
that's what I'm asking is my high watermark for posers in the nerd culture is Big Bang Theory. Was this a poser moment, or did this feel like a genuine love moment, a wink and a nod to those of us that truly love the culture?
I didn't. I took it as a wink and a nod because we know that Brad Bird is a nerd, and we know that Lindelof is a nerd. And this is a movie that is talking about utopia. This is a movie that is talking about invention and science. Like, this is a nerdy movie, and so to have, like Star Wars in there, like in the shop, and Tron and Simpsons, and like R2D2 and things like that. Like it felt like a wink and a nod. Like I didn't see it as poser culture. I felt like it was just a nerdy shop, and it was a chance to put in Easter eggs.
It was too clean. As somebody who, again, as a Gen Xer who went through these shops in their original form, it was too clean. Way too clean.
See,
I think the
what I
idea
wish
that
they
there was
had
no
done-
comic books, that was a bit of a stretch.
Huge problem.
Yeah, see, what kind of surprised me was that both of them were androids. I think it would have been way funnier if, like, because we saw him acting more human, I guess, with Key coming out and having, like, talking about the door and, like, I gotta present. I think it would have been funnier if he was human, and I guess Ursula is the name of the other store owner, if she was the animatronic, and he had
that
no
would have been
idea,
funny.
and he gets, like, knocked out or something, or I guess disintegrated, because that's what we do.
Well,
But
Or
I
his
think
head bashed in with a baseball bat.
but it would have been funnier
Yuck,
for him
yuck,
to be
yuck.
like, wait, you're like, so she's all creepy about the pin, but he's all like, why are you? It's just a pin. Like, we got a bunch of collectibles right over there. Like, I think that would have been way funnier.
I agree with you. I think that's a great idea that you could have brought to a story conference, Darren, is the idea that, like, he could have been like, I had a crush on you. And she'd be like, yeah, I didn't have to worry about it because I'm a
Working
robot.
12 years in this store and
And
never
you
once did.
Yeah,
Why do you
you
think I never went out with you? Because I'm
Well,
not human. Key.
Or it's like you didn't piece together that we worked 8-hour shifts and I never went to the bathroom. Like, the
Yeah,
problem's
exactly.
not me.
Oh,
You've,
that'd be
you've
hilarious.
never seen me eat.
Right. Exactly.
When's the last
But-
time you saw me blink?
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think something that really took me out of it was in that scene when there was an explosion. Okay, it's crazy. They don't know if they're dead. They don't know. They say that they hope that they went to lunch and everything like that. Then a cop just walks in.
Oh man,
and
this whole sequence. Oh man,
and then takes out a skull with his bare hands, and he's like, "What's this?" And I was like, "Well, it kind of looks like a skull with meat on it."
Yes, that's true.
yeah,
That's true.
Again,
Yeah.
I think it just really comes down to, I was taken aback too when the animatronics come up, and he's like, as soon as they get resistance, and they're like, oh, well, obviously you've seen too much, boom, boom, and like you said, they're not knocked out. I mean, the good guys got the tuning fork to knock out humans, but the bad guys just vaporize you. I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's rough, man.
Yeah, it really, for some reason, when the guy vaporized the policeman, that was the moment where, like, it was really jarring this time because
here.
it was
Same here.
so casual, and I get what they're going for, but at the same time, it was.
See, okay, I mean,
wow.
to change it, like, he holds him up with the gun, kind of like back off, and then so you don't follow us, vaporizes their car, and then gets in their car and drives away. And the cops are all like, and all that's left are like the 4 tires. And the cops are like, well, we would chase you, but something, make it funny, like something like
Right.
that. But that's not what they do at all.
Yeah, be inventive. Like, have a gun that, like, is sonic based and like blows them away or something like that.
Or even just for fun, even though it would be a Men in Black reference, like wipe their memories sort of thing. It was like,
Right,
yeah, they've only
yeah.
got 58 days left anyway.
I mean, they even mentioned that
be
they
happy.
have that technology. They've used it before.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's right. Yeah, Hugh Laurie, who I guess was the antagonist,
I guess.
like said, like, oh yeah, we didn't even bother with, like, convincing him that this was a weather balloon or something like that. I want to talk about Hugh Laurie. Okay, so he's the antagonist. He's the bad guy. Apparently, he deserved to get smushed. Because That's what I'm saying. He
Yeah.
deserve like I'm
Oh, I know. Air
sarcastically
quotes.
saying
Yeah.
sarcastically
He's the
saying,
level of malevolence of like a principal at a school.
well, that's
Like
the thing. So
saying
like
no to your science experiment. Like he's not threatening. He's not.
Yeah.
but at the end, he like they said, like so the signal is going out and is putting doom in people's brains
Right.
because he's saying you guys are going towards Armageddon, and so you need to see where you're stepping, and so that's why I'm doing this. And so even if that was ill-founded or like ill-advised, I should say, like they're saying he's the antagonist, he's the bad guy. The movie almost laid Armageddon on his feet.
Even though he didn't mean to do it.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't deserve the end that he gets. He deserves a change of heart moment.
Yeah,
Where
exactly.
he says,
Yes.
I was wrong. You're right. We should be embracing the future. I made the mistake. I didn't know I made the mistake. If I made a mistake, everybody's making a mistake. And if I can change, then you can change. The Rocky IV ending. Okay. Let's just
Exactly.
always go
And-
back to that one.
And that
Yeah.
would have nailed the point of the picture home way more than it was.
That the point was to change hearts and minds, not crush people and vaporize them.
Because the entire time that I'm watching this, and then when we get to the end, like when Casey goes through the basically virtual reality commercial, and it's post George Clooney as a young person, I'm thinking like, okay, so there's this other dimension where all these smart people are inventing all these crazy things that the world, like the rest of humanity, don't get to benefit from. And then we go to the end of the movie where the evil Hugh Laurie is dead, and then they start Tomorrowland back up again. And so they're taking and stealing our best minds from Earth and taking them to Tomorrowland to continue to develop cool ideas that the human race does not get to benefit from. How is this averting Armageddon?
Credits roll at that point, and
Yeah.
everybody walks out with a music swell and a happy feeling. Here's something I want to hit on. Is one of the people credited with editing this film is Walter Murch, who is a legendary editor.
Legend.
Absolute walks on water sort of legend. The guy put together 4, how many different cuts of Apocalypse Now, and all of them are 5-star films. Like, how do you do that?
Anyone who's even edited their own kid's soccer game admires Walter Murch.
The guy is a literal genius who happened to decide to edit film. He's a literal genius. But this movie does not seem to benefit from his genius. And I want to ask Tristan, as somebody who works in this field, do you see moments of brilliance in the editing of this film, or do you see making the best with what you have?
This film makes me wonder because there are sequences that are very well edited. Because Craig Wood is no slouch either. Like, the guy edited some of the Pirates movies, Guardians of the Galaxy. He's done a lot of stuff for Disney, and this guy knows. Like, both people know what they're doing. Like, even though Murch is the legend, Craig Wood is no slouch. So the sequences are very well edited. Everything is put together really well. Like, I would be intimidated as hell to be co-editing a picture with Walter Murch. Yeah. So it makes you wonder why. Why did that happen? How is it cut up? Who did what? Did Walter Murch do a cut, and then did Craig Wood have to do the reshoots? But because of guild rules, did they have to give him co-credit? It makes you wonder how they split the duties, because it's like Craig Wood totally could have done this by himself. Walter Murch totally could have done this by himself. So what's the point of having two? It makes you wonder. And so I think when you have two really good editors, and this is a well-edited piece scene to scene, the stuff that doesn't make sense, the stuff that's disorganized and all put around, makes you feel like, okay, so the producers made the editors do this. Because if you have somebody like Walter Murch on your side, and you have like say, like he has a relationship like he does with Francis Ford Coppola. It is two people working together to make something brilliant. This does not feel like that. This movie feels like something put together by committee,
Well,
in my opinion.
I mean, I'm just reading right now about in the filming, and it talks about in post-production, a number of scenes featuring actress Judy Greer, who was the mother, her late mother. A lot of them were cut to improve runtime. So she was just removed to that one little cameo of like,
Yeah.
when she's young. And there's another actor who portrayed Casey's live-in uncle, Anthony, who had his role entirely removed. So, I mean, what I take from that, again, just assumption, is these are characters that obviously contributed to the plot. And when you cut like an entire uncle out, like I was talking earlier about like her needing a friend to talk to. An uncle totally sounds like someone who's on her inner circle who she'll share about what she's up to or what she's going. But we get like none of that. So I don't know. That's crazy.
That makes me feel, again, this is complete and pure conjecture. That makes me feel like Walter Murch cut that movie. He cut that movie.
And then he said, I'm done.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
and then they said like, "Oh, we need to recut everything and take stuff out." And that's when he goes, "No thanks. I got other stuff to do." And then because Craig Wood has worked with Disney for so long, they're like, "Okay, we need someone we can rely on."
What I tell them to do.
Yeah, Craig Wood will do what we need him to do. And so they brought him on, and then he recut it down to what it is now. That's my guess, but it is an educated
maybe
one.
Runtime, maybe story edit,
Yeah.
It sounds like, I mean, again, just cutting out an uncle for runtime, it makes sense. If like I didn't notice that there was an uncle, like,
and then when I saw Judy Greer in that shot, I was just like, "Oh, cool, she's in this." No, she's not.
Nope, not anymore. No.
So I almost wonder if this is a film that would benefit from an extended cut. And as we are rounding third, we'll let that be our springboard into our ratings. Darren, before we get there, is this a movie where you say to yourself, I want to see more of it because I feel like this sings if I see more on the screen? Or do you look at it and say, no, the problem is it should be 30 minutes shorter and then I'm not frustrated at the end of it?
There's many problems with this movie, and I think we've covered a lot of them. Honestly, I think your idea, John, of it being animated makes the most sense. Also because I think there are some foundational story issues with this movie, like protagonist confusion, jumping around in different times, the overall message. How strong do you push that message across? Because at the end, if you just upset your audience, they're not, or like you were saying, stuff's happening to the main character, quote unquote, for so long that we stop caring. And I feel like in an animated movie, again, it's just conjecture, but like I think a lot of those issues would be fixed or fleshed out before you ever start animating, because you cannot go into the animation process half-cocked and like, oh, well, we got a story, we'll keep writing pages as we animate. Like, no, you've storyboarded it out, you've figured out, oh yeah, this doesn't make sense, or this. And it's a totally different beast though when you're doing a live action. Not to say they didn't make plans, not to say they didn't storyboard or anything like that, but it's a different beast. So I think if this had been an animated movie, you fix a lot of the violence issues, or you would take them in a completely different way. You could easily spend more time in the 60s because it's not as expensive to draw 60s as it is to, live actions. It costs just as much to draw 60s as it does draw 2015. And yeah, it also, at the end of the day, again, it's Tomorrowland. Tomorrowland is about optimism and this great big beautiful tomorrow. And I felt, maybe not as much first time watching this. First time, I think I enjoyed it a lot more. But rewatching this, like I said, I had trepidation because it feels like you get side punched. Like you're expecting this one thing, be it the message or the morals. And I don't know, it just at the end, you get this bad taste in your mouth. That's how I kind of felt. And again, like I would have watched an entire movie set in the 60s, and heck, even make it 2 movies, like lead it up to his being booted out, and you're like, oh, what's going to happen? And then you time jump to the 80s or something like that. Like, I don't know, something interesting. An interesting comparison it just made me think of, because in a way this movie is kind of trying to do an alternate future. Like, it's the 60s, but it's not the 60s. There's a secret group that's making futuristic stuff, but that's not our future or our past. But it also is like that. It's making me think of For All Mankind, a great TV show, which is kind of an alternative version of our history, based off of the Russians get to the moon first, and it changes major courses of our events. And we put a lot into space travel, so we're still doing it, but it does it in a way that is way more like, there's still problems, there's still issues, we're still human, but there's still that spark of humanity and optimism in that show. I feel like that dies in this movie. I do not have it by the end. And maybe that's because I'm watching this in 2023 and thinking, boy, we're re-naive back in 2015, because we're still there. That's definitely a small part of it. But yeah, I want to see the animated version of this movie.
Well, what we usually do, Tristan, is we usually let the person who saw it first go last. So I'll go ahead and start it this time. I will go ahead and start this ball rolling in terms of our ratings as we go into things. And I will say that I have a really hard time giving this a rating, because this is a movie, and this goes back to the first time I watched it. I wanted to love it so bad. I wanted to like this movie. I saw what Brad Bird was going for. I saw what they were saying, even though it beat me over the head. And I said, yeah. And my daughters enjoyed it. And I was like, okay, I'll get on board. But man, there are enough structural and execution problems with this that I just have to be honest with myself that we speak in conjecture sometimes. But while I still don't understand why Disney Plus doesn't freaking have this on their service, I kind of understand why Disney Plus doesn't have this on their service, because they don't want to remind people that they released it. And I think that we see with the failure commercially of Tomorrowland, which costs, I think with marketing costs like 300 million, and then it only made 200 or something like that.
I have the numbers in front of me. It has a budget. It has a production budget of 190 million. So that's not including advertising or marketing or anything like that. So a production budget of 190 million. Worldwide, it made 209 million. That is an epic failure, especially for a Disney film. And on top of that, 13% of its production budget went to George Clooney. He took home 25 million for this picture. It was his biggest payday to date.
He should be ashamed of himself for doing that, because the way that you do it is you take points on the net profit, because if you believe in the project, then you're going to make money.
No, I say he should have been ashamed, because anybody could have played that role, and they could have saved $25 million.
That's also true.
No one saw this because of
Brad Bird could have played it. He could have done Edna Mode and been like, well, let's just make me Frank. Like,
seriously, not a single person watched this because George Clooney was in it.
I agree. And I will go ahead and I will give my rating of, out of a possible 5, this is a 2. I don't think I'm ever going to revisit this. I didn't hate the movie, but at the same time, I understand now why the only reason I ever revisited it was for podcast homework. So Darren, will now kick it over to you. And where do you rate this film?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would have rated it. I rated it higher in my mind when I first saw it. Again, I wanted to love this movie. I was hyped for this movie. I remember going to Disneyland. They had a little kiosk near Space Mountain that had like props from it. And it was still kind of in the mystery phase where like this kind of had the marketing was kind of a Matrix, like we can't show you what it is. You have to see it for yourselves kind of vibe, which, because again, we're like, is it in the 60s? Is it in modern time? And then you see a trailer and you're like, is it, an inconvenient truth? Like what is going on? What is the vibe you're going for, Disney? Plus that awesome like intro we got, or the Disney castle is the Tomorrowland castle, which was really cool. But yeah, watching this later, maybe again, just because it's like, if this is how we felt in 2015, like we sure really haven't done much better in the intervening years. So I'm also going to give it a 2. It's just disappointing in really what it could have been. I mean, usually we can kind of see the writing on the wall when we start coming up with better ideas on the fly. It's all hindsight, and I totally get that. And we're not in the director's chair or the producer's chair, and I also don't know if they knew how to market this movie. Like it was all over the place. Like you didn't know what to expect. And I think if you don't know what to expect by the time you sit down, you're really not going to fully enjoy it. I think the optimist 60s dreamer was disappointed. And I think the modern Tomorrowland viewer, I don't know who they were servicing. It didn't quite pan out. I've ridden, Small Wolf with my pin many times. Nothing's happened, guys. Nothing's happened.
Well, that's a bummer.
I'm so disappointed.
So Tristan, this is one of those rare times where Darren and I are lining up. I can't wait to hear, as a first-time viewer of this, why you gave it a 5.
I've been very open during this entire podcast. Like I have not hid my feelings whatsoever. I didn't watch this movie until it was homework, because the marketing, like Darren, like you were saying, that the marketing was so mysterious that I was just like, I don't even know what this movie is. Why am I going to go see it if I have no idea what it is? And so I didn't see it. And then it wasn't on any service, and I didn't feel like renting it when it came out because no one talked about it. No one talked about it after it came out. And I didn't even know that the critics panned it. I was just like, oh, this came out and no one talked about it, so I'm not going to go see it. And I never did. And then when I saw this, like usually, my wife, Sarah, will watch Houselights movies with me. And I was like, I'm not going to make you watch this one. She's like, thank you. Because she hadn't heard anything about it either. And as I'm watching it, not only did I not enjoy this film, I actively disliked it. I was the entire time I was watching it, I was just like, this is such a stupid decision. Like, why did they do that? Like, it's just so much style over substance. So much style over substance. And also, like, right off the bat, like with what I talked about, like with the kids in class and like learning about dystopia and everything like that. Like I'm getting way more jaded as I get older. Like every single year that passes, I get more and more jaded, where I'm just like, it doesn't matter. We're not going to invent anything new. We're all going to die in fire, and it's fine. We're going to suffocate to death. Like I'm not even joking. Like I talked to my therapist about it. I was just like, I threw away a recyclable, and I was just like, should I take it out of the garbage? No, because we're all going to burn by fire. But regardless, that could have, peppered this movie on me a little bit, but I've been very, very, very open about my criticism of it. I'm giving it a generous 2. So this is 2 across the board for Tomorrowland, because to me, 2.5 is mediocre, but 2 is bad. This is a bad movie.
Just as we exit, I'll say that the last time that all 3 of us lined up was also when we gave Universal 2s, and that was for The Never-Ending Story. From Wolfgang Peterson of the 80s.
Well, that's the last time we lined up on 2s. We did line up on 4s with Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, but yes.
Oh my gosh, you're right. We did.
Just last week.
So at the very, you know what? I messed up because I'm spinning the thing and I got this countdown clock.
Also all 4s, but
Yeah, listen. All right, look.
Or
Lined up on
2001
twos.
with all 5. Sorry, I'll stop.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you make your point? You made your
Yeah.
point. All right, you made your point. Don't feed the wrong wolf here, Darren. Come on
God.
now. You're feeding
That was the message of the movie. Oh, I get it now. It's 2.5. Yeah.
Come on now. Yes, exactly. If one person gives it so much as 0.1 more, we are all saved. And speaking of saved, we are going to revisit. This is my first time visiting it. We are going to close out our time in the birdhouse with Brad Bird trying to pull out of this low point in his career, where it was received poorly by both audiences and critics, with his return to animation in Pixar with his sequel, Incredibles 2, right here on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.